Shut up and sit down.
Boom.
Yep.
I hope people are hearing that, by the way. Like, otherwise, if you imagine if they didn't hear the intro, this is boom, they would just hear us start by just boom or boom. They'd be like, what are these guys doing?
You think there's a possibility of that not coming through?
Or of people fast forwarding through the intro, maybe. Although the intro's like 10 seconds, so come on, man. You can make it through 10 seconds.
There's some really impatient people out there.
I would probably be one of them, because actually when I watch YouTube stuff, I typically fast forward.
Then you need a little bit more Dharma time.
Yeah. However, I always make a point, and I don't know if you do this too or not, but I always make a point, if I'm listening to something new or if I'm watching a new show, I always watch the intro at least once.
I do that too.
Yes, exactly. I'll watch the intro because I want to get it, and then after that I'll skip through it. But I want to at least, I want to hear it. So hopefully the Dope and Dharma listeners are doing the same thing.
You know why I do it though? I have a reason why I do it. Do you have a reason, or you just do it?
I have a reason. Okay, so we're gonna get into that. Like I am a person that when I watch a show, like that's my escape, and I want to appreciate. I know that every single syllable, every note, everything was done for a reason when they're trying to tell me a story. So I want to be fully immersed in the journey that the person telling the story wants me to go through. So I want to be able to experience everything, which is also why I like captions on, because I like to hear stuff, or I don't like to miss something that's is seemingly benign, because to me it goes with creating the ambiance of the moment, and so I don't want to miss out on any of that. So
same.
Yeah, so same. Be totally immersed in whatever it is.
Yep, and in the way I look at an intro and outro is like that director and that editor and that producer and everybody that worked on it, the person in charge of the music, they picked that to always kind of get your vibe and energy ready to experience whatever they're about to show you. And so I use that as a judgment tool.
Shame on you.
If you notice, really good, especially HBO started that. For real, for me, the good
Sopranos, the Sopranos opening was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, all those songs that they used on their shows at the beginning just set a tone. Yeah, and so
before we I don't want to take us too far off, but that's actually how I found probably one of my favorite bands now of all time is The Heavy.
Okay,
I was watching, I think it was Banshee. And they had Shortchange Hero, and I heard it as the intro, and it was like an amazing intro song. I was like, holy crap, who is that? I looked them up, started listening to some of their music, and realized, like, wow, dude, they're amazing. And The Heavy is one of those bands that has like the perfect amount of stardom. Their music is literally everywhere. Everybody's heard them, but nobody knows who they are. Right. So they've got enough fame to where they're getting paid, but not so much fame where they can't walk around and be unbothered by anybody.
That's nice.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Anyways, I digress. Welcome everybody. This is Dope and Dharma, and as always, this is not always, I guess. I would say always, but this isn't Tuesday. So normally on Tuesdays it's the Dharma Time hour. I'm on the left hand side of the screen. That's how you know it's Dharma Time.
It might be.
It's like a dead giveaway.
It might be Tuesday to somebody.
Yeah, if you're listening to this on a Tuesday, then you're a week behind. But welcome. Today's our Wednesday. If you're listening to this live, and if you're doing so live, if you'd like to participate or give some comments or just join the discussion, you could do so on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch under Dope and Dharma. And as always, if you want to listen to your leisure while you're working out, driving, whatever it might be, you could do so on any of your major podcasting platforms. And as always, if you do like what you hear, feel free to hit the subscribe button or like us, follow us, share it, that kind of stuff. It really does help. And we're trying to get our words of wisdom out to as many people as possible. So, all right, let's get into the topic. So this is a topic that you actually brought up. It was a few weeks ago, I believe. You mentioned it to me, and I was like, okay. I mean, I've heard of it. I didn't really spend that much time, in my life, getting into it. But I was aware of it when you first brought it up. Right. I don't remember what it was that made you. I think you were on a trip somewhere, must have heard it, and it made you want to talk about it.
Be real clear about that. I want to make sure that Dana knows I didn't think about this topic
right.
because I was thinking about something.
Well, I made sure not to tell my wife before I came in here what the show was about because I didn't want her thinking, huh?
Yeah, why are you guys talking about that?
Exactly. But yeah, so I've looked into a little bit more, and my initial reaction when I first heard conscious uncoupling, the little bit that I did hear of it, yeah, I was skeptical. I still am skeptical, but for different reasons. So, anyways, so before we get started, the conscious uncoupling, just so everybody knows, is not really a new thing. It's been around since like the 1940s, I think, is when it was
Oh,
first.
really?
Yeah.
Well, see, it's new to me. That's why I called you and asked you, what does it mean?
Yeah, 1940s is when it was first kind of like coined. 1970s,
Okay.
it was a little bit more, but then in 2009, I think it was 2008, 2009, a lady something Woodward, I think her name was. She kind of wrote a book about conscious uncoupling and brought it to the forefront. And then it became really popular when Gwyneth Paltrow kind of, took the mantle. And I think that's how her and her husband or ex-husband, I guess, I don't know. That's how they kind of went about it. And then she wrote about it in her little goop thing, and it kind of took off from there. Um, I, I'm hesitant to say took off because I don't think that it hit the mainstream any more than most of her stuff does. But I do believe there's segments of the population to where that's a term that you're going to hear, if that makes sense.
Right.
So that is what conscious uncoupling is. Is not what my original thought when I first heard the words conscious uncoupling.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of those oh my god, quietly quitting or something like that. Right? Like the quiet quitting with a job where you're basically just doing the bare minimum just to get through it. That is not really what it is. That's not what the quote unquote textbook definition of conscious uncoupling is. So in a nutshell, without going, I mean, I have the 5 steps. I looked them up earlier. But just the Cliff Notes version of it. It's basically walking away from a relationship like healthy. Really, like that's all. That's kind of what it is.
So wait a minute. Are
walking
you
away from?
There's steps to this. There's
yes.
There's
yeah, sort of. It's a very
somebody wrote about this.
Oh yeah, this is like a big deal for a lot of people for
really
certain segments, right? Like it's a very gosh, man, for lack of a better phrase, and I'm probably gonna piss some people off here, but it's a very foo-foo kind of idea, right?
It sounds like a therapist got involved. It sounds like a therapeutic term.
Yes.
That some therapist,
yes,
came up with and coined it, and then started using it with their people.
Yes, that's basically what it is. And when you look at the overall or overarching kind of all right, the bare nuts and bolts of what is this. That's kind of what it is. It's like if you had a therapist come in and help you guys separate and did it the most healthy way possible. That's like kind of what it is.
I like that part. I mean, just for those of you that don't know, I'm an addictions professional. I see patients, I see clients. So
sure.
I've done therapy to people for a long time. Right. But I'm not a marital therapist. That's not my deal. And I don't sit there and go, and how does that make you feel? That's not my style.
It's always your mom's fault or your dad's fault. Like,
that's why that's not my style. I'm into realistic, like, look, and regardless of your situation, we got to do something about it, right? Or else we're just going to sit here and complain about it. And we could do this for years. Like there's famous patients like Howard Stern that go to therapists for forever.
Right.
Or there's people that actually do brief type therapy, and let's keep it moving. We got to go. I need to process this emotion or this feeling or this resentment really fast. And I got to stop hurting myself, but I need some active measures and a plan to get out of it, which is the reason life coaches get so much action now and gurus get so much action now. And people on TikTok and stuff are becoming better paid therapists than some of you out there, because you spend too much time coining phrases like this and wanting to spend enormous amount of hours just sitting there listening and going,
yeah. You just gave me another topic for a show, by the way.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we're going to do a show on therapy.
Okay.
Just in general therapy. Like,
okay.
Yeah, because I think that would be a good one. So yeah, I mean, so when you heard conscious uncoupling, what comes to your mind? Like, what do you think of?
Well, so when I heard it, and I don't remember where I was or anything, because that's the way my brain works, I do remember the term, and it was like aware separation, like being aware of separation. And I guess I was thinking like Like, who isn't aware that they're separating? Like,
Right.
are there people out there that all of a sudden they go home and it's empty? Which, remember the Dear John letters?
Oh yeah, those
So we know
happen.
they exist. Yeah, so we know that exists. So I was figuring this is one of those situations where two people are still playing like adults and they sit down. Like, I was imagining modern couples sitting down and says, "We have to talk." Oh,
Right.
really, honey? What do we have to talk about? And that they go, "I don't think this is working." You know what? I'm glad you said that because I don't think it's working either. Well, let's talk about how we're going to do this then, because we're both on the mortgage, or we're both on the lease, or we have these children, and I figured, like, it sounds like
That's kind of what it is.
it sounds very idealistic,
Of course.
but I'm thinking one of them is really the whole time saying, "You son of a bitch."
Right.
Yeah, I'm playing this game with you, but I'm going to take you for half of what you
Yeah.
son of. Who is she or who is he? Like, who?
Well,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
That's why I don't think it's realistic.
Well,
just
and
don't.
and if it is, you guys sound perfect for each other.
That's
why
kind of my
why
point.
would you uncouple? If you could sit down, I guess the way I'm looking at it is, you could sit down and consciously uncouple.
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't be uncoupling, because if you think there's someone else out there that knows how to have this conversation more respectfully or maturely than the one you're having with it now, you are going to be sad.
What I think is amazing is you and I have never spoken about this.
No.
Other than you just dropped that nugget one day of this is you think we should do a show on.
Right.
And I 100% feel the same for the same reasons. The first thing that comes in my mind when I'm reading all the stuff that entails is, if you're in a position with a partner where you can calmly and rationally sit down and discuss your feelings and be heard, and vice versa, what the hell are you separating for? That's like the whole point, right? Like, divorces don't happen because you're getting along so well and everything works. No, divorces happen because somebody's upset, or both people are upset and they can't get over it.
You think there's a point where you sit there, and you said there's 5 steps to it, right? And by the time you get to the 5th step, maybe there's like a possible 6th, which says, if you were able to complete the last 5 steps, 6th step is re-ask that person to go out with you again. Get back on get on the other knee.
Here, so Marissa from Facebook Live said, uncoupling gets rid of irreconcilable differences in divorce, apparently. LOL. Yeah. If they can agree this much, then why? Yeah, I think we're kind of all saying the same thing.
Well, yeah.
It feels to me, like you said, it feels to me like a therapist came up with it.
Right.
Who is trying to give you the blueprint of like perfection. Like, this is what it's supposed to look like. Yeah. But it's not very practical, in my opinion. An
unmarried therapist, by the way,
probably
so much sounds like an unmarried therapist, or a therapist that has a partner that lies to them and just lies to them because they don't want to get therapized, by their partner.
I don't. So I guess I'm old school when it comes to those things, right? When it comes to like uncoupling, if you will. If it didn't work, it didn't work, man. Now, I'm not saying that if I were to walk away from a situation that I need to be vindictive and angry and all these other things, right? I don't need to do all that. Now, granted, there are people out there who feel wronged and they want to, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you, kind of a thing. They just can't seem to get over it or let it go. And no, I don't think that's healthy, obviously, for either one of you. But I am under the notion, if you will, that if and let me preface this by saying, I think relationships, friends with benefits, stuff like that is a little bit different than marriage. Right. If we're talking about marriage, like, I married you, like, we tried to make a go at this forever and it didn't work. If I'm done, I'm done. For me, like, I'm ready to just accept it. It is what it is, and move on with my life. I don't need to be friends afterwards. I don't need to stay in touch. Like, I'm gone. That's just an area of my life. It didn't work out. I'm going to move on with it, and I'm going to go do my thing.
Well, it's different if there's children, and I'm not saying you have to be friends, but you have to be somewhat cordial for the benefit of the children.
Sure, yeah. Well, like, I'm in a situation for myself. I wasn't married, but I am co-parenting. Right. And the boundaries that I have set up with my co-parenting, ex, if you will, is one of, like, we're not friends. We don't hang out. I don't need to know about your life. I'm not telling you about my life. Like, and I don't have any ill will or hatred. I'm indifferent. I'm just I moved on with that area of my life. I've got a new family now that I'm focused on. And I will continue to cooperate and be cordial when it comes to the kids. But if it's not about the kids, I'm not really interested in having that conversation. Like, I don't, why?
But you also don't use the kids as carrier pigeons.
No, that is a big
here.
no-no.
Take this note to mommy. Let me
That
tie
is a
this.
big no-no.
Let me tie this to your foot.
Yeah, that is a big no-no. I can only speak for myself in that. That's a big no-no.
Right.
And I think that, so the idea of conscious uncoupling, everything inside of me wants, like the realistic person inside of me wants to hate it because it sounds stupid and highfalutin concept.
It sounds foo-foo.
Yes, but the spiritual individual who wants to see the good in things, I see the merit in it, right? Like, do I think that is what we should aim for? Yeah, but if you're getting divorced, man, my guess is you're not really that great at doing that with that person to begin with. So the idea that suddenly now that you've decided to walk away from a situation, you're going to be great at doing that.
Right.
I just call bullshit, I just, because it takes two extremely healthy individuals to participate in that process. And the conscious uncoupling stuff that I was reading says that you don't have to have a participatory spouse, meaning you don't need the other person to participate. It's all about basically healing from the situation yourself. And in that instance, or that situation, I agree. Like, I agree with doing the emotionally healthy or the right thing because it's the right thing. But I believe in that in a relationship, not just when you're ending a relationship.
Right. Well, now you're gonna have to read it. Now you're gonna have to read it.
Read what? The
5. You're gonna have to read that. But if you want to go ahead and finish your point, finish it. But you're gonna have to read that.
Well, so I'll finish the point in the sense that when I was doing the groups with people,
right,
oftentimes doing groups, various subjects come up at any given moment. People are dealing with different things, and so relationships would often come up. And many times, because the individuals who were in the group with me were in recovery, oftentimes the relationship was slanted in one direction or another, right? And many times they would say about how it was usually one of two things, right? The person in recovery was pretty healthy now. They've gone through a substantial amount of 12 steps. They're doing well. And then the other person is still harboring some sort of resentment or anger from previous injuries. Or the person is in the midst of their addiction still, and they're hurting their partner constantly. Right. And so oftentimes they would ask me, well, how do we progress when this person won't do this? And my answer was always, it doesn't matter, right? Like they are where they're at on their journey. They can do what they do. It shouldn't have any bearing on what you do. And if you do the right thing, you'll be surprised on how the other person will respond to that. Meaning, if I'm in a toxic relationship and I'm upset at things or whatever, and I'm constantly picking and attacking my spouse, I can kind of expect that in return, right? However, if my spouse is just negative and pissy and upset all the time or whatever it might be, but instead I come from a place of love and compassion on a consistent basis, and I don't take the things personal, what you'll notice is after a while, you'll start to get something different back from that spouse. Because from the spouse's perspective, it's really easy to be pissy and argumentative and angry to a combative person.
Right.
But when that person is just loving and compassionate and doesn't really challenge it, and I'm not saying you don't have boundaries, but I'm just saying you don't have to get involved in the arguments. You'll notice that it's a lot harder to argue with that person. It's really hard to argue with somebody who's just being loving and kind to you.
Especially if they leave.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let me read these things real quick. I'm not going to read all the intro stuff, and I'm just going to read. I'm going to read the basics.
Okay.
Because it's the article.
Just give me just give me the juice.
Yeah, the first step, and so these embody what I don't like about the spiritual world, if you will, or even the counseling world in some instances. So the reason why the Dharma guy exists in the first place is when I was reading books on spirituality and learning how to apply it in my life, and I can only speak for myself. Hopefully there's people out there who might agree, but I would read stuff and I'd be like, what the hell did they just say? Like, it wouldn't make any sense. It would sound like some weird space alien wrote something that sounded like it wasn't practical, and for me, that's not how I learn best. I learn best like I'm just talking to a friend, like, give it to me straight. Like, give me, what are we doing here? So I'm going to preface it all by saying that some of these things that they're written are like, what? So the first one is find emotional freedom. Right off the bat, the title.
Wait, that's it? That's the whole thing?
No, that's step one, and then it goes into
Oh, that's what I mean.
explain.
That's the whole step one?
Yeah, step one.
Find
Find
emotional
emotional.
freedom.
Yes. Yes.
And how are you interpreting that? Like, how are they meaning that? What do you mean find
Well,
emotional?
it says basically the first step is to self-soothe and create inner sense of calm, so that your emotions aren't impacting your ability to think straight. So I read that as
Okay.
accept it. Basically, is what I read that as.
And I read it like, wait, don't whatever just happened that made you want to leave, like take a step back. Let's not make an emotional decision. Let's make it. So here's a conscious. I'm going to use the word conscious because
Oh, look at you!
it's a conscious
Bonus
decision.
points.
Well, it's because you got to make a conscious decision.
Sure.
You got to make a deliberate, meaningful decision that's best for you, but don't make it just
Right.
because this
Sure.
person just did something to piss you off. This person just did
Sure.
something to hurt you, and then you're reacting on emotion. Like let's get emotion out of it. Let's get a little bit more practical, realistic, and rational
Sure.
in your decision making. Which that makes sense. So far, I like that.
Yeah. It says here, so the first episode, one way to do this, okay, figure out how you can use your negative emotions to your benefit as you begin. Okay. So
no, wait a minute. Before you go in a second, the self-soothing part gets me a little bit. Do they get a little bit more into the self-soothing? Some of you may interpret that like wrong. Like, you know
it
what
says
I mean?
here,
Like,
well, the way they explain
like
now,
take
there's
care of you, go make yourself
Yeah.
feel good. Somebody may self-soothe before they do all step
Sure.
5. You got to do all 5 steps apparently before
Yeah.
you go out there and
Well, there's a link here. It's
soothe.
like a hyperlink that takes you to a whole article apparently that talks about that. So
Well, that link is probably not self-soothing. It probably is like a material that helps
it
you
says create an inner
self-soothe.
sense of calm.
Yeah. It's called Pornhub. Don't go there
Right.
yet. You're not you first got to deal with your relationship before you start doing ridiculous stuff like that.
Sure.
So go ahead. What's
yeah, it's relatively vague for the first
Okay.
one, I guess.
All
It's open to interpretation, I think, for many.
Okay.
Second step, number 2.
Two.
Reclaim your power and your life.
Well, now,
What does that mean to you?
So you're the bitter one. So you're the one that got ousted. You're the one that
It doesn't say.
Well, that's what it sounds like. I mean, if you're reclaiming, it's almost like somehow you lost yourself within something very toxic.
So
right?
I'm going to give you the
That's how I'm
short.
reading that.
I'm going to give you the synopsis here. It's a 3-paragraph long thing, so I'm just going to give you.
Yeah, don't give
like
me
the
3
last
paragraphs.
one. It says basically, in short, being able to see yourself as the co-creator of what happened in the relationship without
Okay.
shaming or blaming yourself is key. So basically, understanding that it
We
didn't
both
happen
took part.
to you, you participated,
Yeah.
right?
I
Which
like
once
that.
again is healthy, because nobody's an island, right? Like it takes 2 to argue.
Right. Well, I almost think that the way that they headline it doesn't sound as good as maybe some sentences that are within it.
No, it doesn't
Because
at all.
I mean that last sentence you said, that makes a lot more sense. It's like, look, you're a participant, you're not a victim. That's
Correct.
kind of the way I would say. Don't go into a breakup or a divorce thinking you're the victim of the situation. Just because then you the anger and resentment are going to be guiding your decision making. So I think it's better to kind of understand that
Right.
whatever it was, whatever happened, I'm a participant in this. However, if the other person did something, extracurricular activities outside of the relationship, don't get stuck in blaming yourself and shaming yourself and attacking yourself. That's the decision they made, just like there's decisions that you made. But if you're the one that went out and did extracurricular activities, also you can't be blaming them for why you did it. That's still your decision, and you made that decision consciously. Again, consciously. The word conscious keeps coming up in my explanations, with or without doing it. So they're doing a good enough job to making me use one of the words in their description. So,
well, I think that that is something that we all say, right? I've never heard anybody say, "No, I'm perfect, and you're the whole problem."
Oh, wait a minute.
Hold on.
I haven't heard
anybody say it specifically that way. You're perfect, or I'm perfect, and you're the problem. I do no wrong. I've never heard that specifically. What I have heard is, oh yeah, it takes 2 of us. I'm sure I'm not perfect either, but you, and then they lay into the other person and proceed to list every single thing that they've negative ever done. So the implication is I'm perfect and you're the problem, right? So it's a great idea, this concept of, I participated, but I don't think we spend enough time really looking into how did I participate, right? Like, yes, I'm hurt and I'm upset at this other person at the moment. My feelings are hurt, but they probably feel the same. And I think that gets lost sometimes. We don't acknowledge the fact that we're the villain in somebody's story at all times, in this world. Just like you're the victim in this story, you're the villain in somebody else's story, whether you believe so or not.
I think that's what's weird about it. Being two guys that we make our living off of words rather than like our hands, right?
Right.
Both of us like the simplicity of hands, meaning it's so simple. If I push you, you know darn well I pushed you, right? Well, guess what? I know my words. I know when I'm pushing, right? Yeah. What I don't like is when someone does not admit that they're pushing. You're pushing me away with your words. Like you're verbally saying, something like a punch, except I'd rather you just punch me and let's get this over with.
Now, do you think everybody's always aware of that?
I would like to believe that a large majority of us are 100% aware of it, but may not want to admit it. Because if you admit something, then it's almost like admitting that you're a participant. And I don't think that people want to be a participant, which is why I think that they're saying that. Because I think that marital therapists probably hear so much of the person feeling like a victim and not a participant in the unfolding.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a good question on how many, because I do think that some of us are very self-aware and very conscious of what's taking place in us internally and how that comes out. However, I do think that there are some people out there who are just really, really not self-aware, and they're saying certain things, and it really has not clicked inside of them on how what they just said was extremely aggressive or hurtful. I do think that there's some people out there that just don't get it.
I agree with that, and I'm going to add to that. My experience has been that the people that actually feel the most self-aware are actually the least self-aware.
Ooh, look at that! It was like a fortune cookie.
Yeah, I think the ones that admit that I think I know what's going on. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel like I did it, but the ones that say I know 100% what I did, when they say that for everything, for every emotion, through every emotion, because I believe that you know it sometimes. Like I know it sometimes,
of course,
but I don't always know it, because if I always knew it, hell, I'd be able to control every outcome, and I can't.
Yeah, well, there's definitely been times in my life even where my wife and I'll have a conversation, and maybe I'll say something that stung a little bit.
Right.
And I fully knew it, like it was intended to sting, and I did it, and I know I did it. I might not admit it to her in the moment. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I know exactly what I did. But then there's been other moments too, where maybe I was already agitated from other things, and she'll say something, I'll snap a little bit, didn't even realize that I snapped. It never occurred to me that, I was coming from a place of unskillfulness at that moment.
Right.
And those are the ones that suck, because then I have to come back and be like, I'm sorry. You're right. I didn't handle that one well.
That's why we all need that instant replay that they do on that commercial, man. We all need to throw the red flag. And I look, my wife and I actually joked about like installing cameras in the entire house and actually going to that method, because we both love that commercial so much, and we both want to throw the red flag on the other person. Right. And I've heard myself before and go like, wow, I really didn't think I sounded aggressive on that, but I can see why you did. And then that sentence comes, I can see why you interpreted that. Well, that's because it was, Louis. Because it was, man.
All right. Next one is, once again, these all sound like great ideas, but they're very vague. Step 3, if you're following along with us, kids, is break the pattern, heal your heart.
Oh, I hate the foo-fooish way that it's the
title
well. Of it just sucks, by the way. All 3 of these titles have sucked. I've liked the body of what you say. I have not liked any of the titles. So can you repeat that again?
The title is break
the stupid title. Yeah.
Break the pattern, heal your heart.
All right, now give me the context.
It says here, you have the power to learn how to have healthier relationships. You can do that. It's your destiny to love and be loved. That's the last sentence.
So basically saying, all right, so your picker was broke. It doesn't mean your picker's going to stay broke. It can be repaired.
Basically, right? Basically, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Which is true. That's a big deal, man. Like, let's pause right there.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've talked about this in previous episodes, but I think it bears repeating. This idea that there's no good men or there's no good women out there is complete and utter bullshit. They're out there. Your picker just might be broken. I don't think people pay attention. Your picker could be broken, man. Like you could be guided by some trauma. You could be guided by some past pains and things of that nature, not even know it. And so you're subconsciously valuing things in people that are very toxic to you.
Right.
And then when you get together with them, because that's what you're attracted to, because you're attracted to that chaos and to that turmoil. And then when you get it, it's comfortable, right? You don't like it, but it's comfortable because you've been in it. You know what that is, right? I've lived that way my whole life.
Right.
Okay, great. But then after a while, it's not sustainable. And you're like, oh, this kind of sucks, man. They're bad. They're bad for me. Well, you picked them. Maybe it's time for you to reevaluate what you value in others, man, and try to get healthy. Once again, instead of looking for the right person, work on being the right person. Right. The right people will attract other right people to you.
Amen to that, man. And then you're infected. And when you're infected, you're contagious, by the way, because now you're bringing that infection to a new relationship. Do not go into the next relationship infected. You will infect the next relationship and then wonder why is it that I always find guys like this or women like, because you took a virus and you went into the next relationship and that's what you found. You found someone else with the same virus or somebody that was receptive to that virus. They're too blind to see it. Their pickers broke. They literally saw you and they're like, oh, no, come here. Come kiss me. You're not sick. No, you can't tell that person's sick. The person, I'm putting it in terms of that we can now understand after COVID, right? Like if you literally see somebody coughing up crap, you don't go stick your tongue down their throat. You know what I mean? Like you just saw that they were sick. Yeah. You just see that they're sick, man. You're like, hey man, you need to keep your distance.
Yeah. Well, you kind of just touched on step 4, by the way.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Right. I'm progressive like that, Trinity. I'm progressive.
You touched on step 4 the way we would put that. Okay. Not the way they put that.
Oh, great. Here we go again with the ridiculous language. Go ahead.
Yeah. So step number, I'm almost embarrassed to even read this out loud. Step number 4, become a love alchemist. Yeah. I don't know. Whatever. Man. Those are the things that I have a problem with. That is the sole purpose that Dharma Guy exists.
Oh my God.
I don't like it when people say these like, hey, you have to like such a, it's like, what are you even saying? Like, can you put it in layman's terms, man? Yeah.
All I hear is a witch saying oil and trouble, boil and bubble, whatever. What is that stupid saying?
I don't even know.
From that, boil and bubble, toil and trouble, whatever. What are you mixing up some sort of concoction? I mean, by the way, Santeria, I don't want anything to do with Santeria. I mean, if you're out there, if you're lighting candles and you're creating elixirs and you want me to drink it, no, stay away from me, because that's what that sounds like. When you say alchemist, I think brujeria, man. I don't want no brujeria around me, brother. Just you keep that over there. I don't mind brujas. I just want to be in a relationship with a bruja. You know what I mean?
I had a friend that did that stuff one time. I had no idea. We worked together and we went out to the parking lot and he put this like something on this person's tire, like on their car. I was like, what are you doing? And that's when he tried to explain to me what it was. I was like, whatever, dude. That doesn't make any sense to me, but okay. Yeah.
So you're going to have to explain that love alchemist potion stuff that you just talked about.
Yeah. Well, it's basically what you and I were just kind of saying. And that is, it explains that Woodward Thomas, which is the person who did it, explains that step 4 is about hitting the reset button and transforming resentment into wisdom and lessons learned. It's the process of forgiving yourself and your ex, then setting an intention for the new form that relationship will take. So basically, it's about healing. It's about realizing, okay, what can I take from this situation and learn from it? Where did it go wrong? What part did I play? Where were my boundaries not set? What red flags were there? I'm going to learn from those. That's basically what become a love alchemist means.
That, my friend, is the acceptance part of the steps.
Yeah.
Accept that no longer exists. So don't waste any time trying to figure it out, trying to play with it, trying to reconnect it, whatever. And you're going to go now in this path, and you're going to accept that this is now your life. So I don't want to hear about tomorrow. I don't want to hear about what coulda, shoulda, woulda. That's done. This is your new path. Accept it. Move forward. That's the acceptance step right there. But how he says it, Woodward.
Yeah, whatever.
This alchemist. You don't need to be no alchemist. You just.
I don't get it.
You don't need to be an alchemist.
And so the last one here, the last one that they have, step 5, which to me, I think step 5 is a stick in the mud. I think step 5 is the one that people are going to get really stuck on. And because I think that, typically speaking, in general, I don't think most people are healthy, right? Let's just put that out there. I think the average person walking around has got some unhealed traumas that they're spilling out on everybody around them. Um,
Well, nobody
then,
divorcing is healthy for sure. You're
yeah,
anyone involved in a divorce is unhealthy, even
yeah,
though you were a healthy, normal, rational human being prior to divorce. It's
yeah.
going
The
to make
act of
you
divorce
unhealthy.
itself is going to hurt.
Exactly. It's painful no matter
Um,
what side you're on.
yeah, and then so being the fact that it's unhealthy in general, and then walking away, like I think it's asking a lot. Now,
Okay.
granted, from a spiritual perspective, right, from a Buddhist philosophy, this is 100% dead on. But I don't know of anybody that is detached enough to really follow through on this last one.
Okay.
That's like I said, I think that's where the stick comes into play.
I love
Stick in
your
the mud.
setups.
So number 5 is create your happy even after life. Create your happy even after life,
God,
which
I
once
hate,
again is a
hate
stupid way of putting
I hate this person's language.
it. So paraphrasing, right?
Mhm.
Basically, what they're saying is try to move forward where everybody wins. Meaning, if there's going to be a separation, don't try to take everything to keep them. No, it's like, hey, you need some money to live on. Make sure you have some, and to make let's
Okay.
make sure everybody's walking away from this in a as pleasant as possible.
A win-win.
Yeah, it's going to be a lose-lose, right? Because we're divorcing, but it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be devastating for either one of
Right.
us. Let's try to be amicable the best we can.
Okay. Good.
To me, I think that's where granted, I 100% agree with that.
Right.
However, I think that's where the stick in the mud is going to come because
Do
I
you?
think usually at least one of the people is not healed enough to do it amicably.
Well,
I
then they
think
got to go back to 1 through 4.
exactly.
They're not ready for 5, Trinity.
Yeah.
The only way to be ready for 5 is you're ready to negotiate. All right, now you're ready to negotiate. You're done
Yeah.
yelling. You're done calling me names. You're done
Right.
attacking me. You're done blaming me. All right, have you done your 1 through 4? Okay, good. Now let's do 5. All right, ready to negotiate?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
No, but I
again,
mean, like I said, I think that's the healthiest way to do it. But I've met so many people that don't heal properly.
right.
So even years after the separation, there's still anger and resentment there.
Right.
Even though you've been separated from this person for 3, 4, 5 years,
Right.
it's like even now when you talk about him, you get upset and angry about it. And it's like, whoa, dude, that is so not healthy, right?
Right.
It's 5 years ago. Like, let it go, right? And so to ask that person in the midst of all that to now think about the betterment of that individual and the comfort of them, like I think that's a lot to ask.
This is why arbitration exists in baseball.
Yeah,
right.
mediation and divorce.
Right. Yeah, because all right, so you think you're worth this much money. I'm willing to pay you this much money.
Yeah.
We're not, you're now a free agent. I'm trying to offer you free agency status. I'm giving you money, what you want. Isn't this good enough? And then you go, you know what? Let's take it to an arbitrator. Now you offer me arbitration, which means you understand that I can't get to a point to offer you anything that you find acceptable. So I'm going to send you to an arbitrator who then is going to look at your career, look at your value, look at everything you've done and go, this person's worth this much money. And we've settled on an arbitration money then. Now that's the new number. That is healthy, I think, because it's hard anytime. First of all, we say don't make any big decisions when you're in an emotion, right?
Upset, yeah.
It's really hard to go to court. I don't care if you're just sit there to monitor and watch without having an emotion. You are in a courtroom. I just walk in a courtroom, even when I'm a support system for somebody, and I just feel different. Right? If that bailiff looks at you and he go and just makes a face at you, like, what I do? Oh, I'm sorry. I instantly shrink in a courtroom. If you instantly bow up when you're in a courtroom, they can see that and smell that a mile away. And I'm telling you, man, that's like no. That's a big no. So yeah, I think it's better to like they're saying, you got to go into it in a negotiating way. But I think this is when someone else needs to get involved and help you negotiate this out, because I there's always one manipulator in a relationship, one more, or let me say it different. There's always one person that's better at the manipulation game than the other. Not necessarily a good one, just better than all you have to be is better than the other person, right? Sure. It's just like if the bear is following you, which one is it going to get? The slower one?
Yeah, I got to be faster than at least one person.
Right. And I think that's what happens in couples and relationships, right? One is better at putting certain words together, and the other person just resigns sometimes.
Yeah.
More than the other, right? So I think in these scenarios when you're talking about the actual, now here's the act of separation, here's the money and stuff like that. It's almost better if somebody else gets involved. So I'm a little disappointed that step 5 doesn't say trust a third party to help create a scenario that works,
Right.
because I think that'll be a healthier way about it. And by the way, therapists that created this, that'll give you a job. It gives you something to do. Have two people sit in front of you and say, look, this is what I think, and I'm no longer angry at her. And then she sits down and she goes, yep, and this is what I think, and I'm no longer angry at him. I accept him for all the stupidity that he did in the relationship. I'm sorry, did I say stupidity? Let me go back and do a step again. Oh,
Right.
let me come back. All right, step 5 again. Yes, I'm ready to deal with this. And then the person goes, all right, this looks good. This looks good. Are you willing to accept this? Are you willing to accept this? Okay, let's do it. And boom, that's it. Saves you a lot of money. Because instead, if not, by the way, if not, all the money goes to attorneys. So if you can't do this, attorneys make all your money. And there's a reason why family law and divorce attorneys drive Mercedes Benzes and Lexuses, right?
The more you disagree, the more they make.
Yeah. Divorce attorneys aren't driving, a Hyundai. You know what I mean?
No.
They're driving every vehicle that you want. They're driving your vehicle.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah, they just took your vehicle because you gave it up. So.
Yeah. I think. So, like I said, I think the conscious uncoupling thing is just. I don't know. At its base, yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea. I think that's the goal. I think for most people, or should be the goal.
Yeah.
I just don't know how realistic it is to expect people to be that healthy in the midst of an emotional breakup. I think that's asking a lot, especially if they went into it unhealthy to begin with. So if you're already unhealthy and you're already dealing with trauma and pains and things of that nature in an unskillful way, obviously, because it's spilling out onto your partner, to then navigate a healthy breakup where you're like cordial and understanding. And I just don't beat yourself up if you're not able to do that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I like that there are steps to get there. I do like that, because if it was just an event, like, oh, you should just sit down and just accept.
Yeah.
This ain't
good luck.
This ain't happening in one session, baby. This is I gotta vent a little bit. The other person has to vent a little bit. You kind of got to go through a lot of emotion, and then be like, you got to bleed out, and then the person goes, okay, you good? You done? All right. Now just accept it. Like this is almost like the stages of grief, they're kind of similar, where at the end you just have to accept the loss.
Yeah.
Right. You go through your anger, you go through your frustration, and then eventually you're going to get to the point where you have to accept the loss and move forward. Right. And so that's no different. By the way, the only difference is somebody came up with these fancy little words like therapist.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
This is conscious uncoupling.
Yeah.
Which I think is incredibly intelligent terminology.
No, it's great branding.
I just hate, some of the way you guys.
No, I couldn't agree more.
But the steps make sense.
Of course. Well, that's what I'm saying. I agree with it. Like, I think that is a great way of doing it. I wouldn't word it that way, and I would also be. I would be interested to see the data on how many people are successfully able to do that. Like, I don't think it's a high number.
It just required explanation. You know what I mean? And
so Marissa on Facebook Live, she's watching live, and she said it can lead to a lot of emotional bypassing and burying them to only come up later if you're trying so hard to do it as nice as possible.
Yeah.
And that's the other issue with it, right? Like, not only do I think that it's very difficult, if not impossible, for some people to do that. I think it is possible for some people, especially if you were the selfless one in that relationship and you haven't set good boundaries for yourself. I can see you eating a lot of crap just to make the other person happy, even though you have a leg to stand on, right? Like, you have very legitimate gripes where your boundaries weren't respected, but you're trying to play nice to still kind of give in to this person. And then that could lead to even further resentment, because at some point you're going to look back and be like, why did I not speak up? Why did I not defend myself? Why did I still let this person walk all over me? And so I agree with Marissa. I think that's a very dangerous precedent to set for yourself.
Yeah. They're probably thinking, why did I allow this single therapist or this twice divorced therapist to kind of convince me that this is the way to go?
Exactly.
No, but you know why? This is why the office, wherever this is discussed, needs to be right next to that room where you get to break stuff.
Yeah, right. The rage room.
Yeah, get like a rage room, like go break some shit. You good? You
Yeah.
know, because or that scream room. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? There's a lot of things like that that are kind of healthy. Just kind of let's get it
Yeah.
out. Let's talk about it.
Well,
Let's
it's
vent.
okay to be angry, right? Like, I think that
Right.
we look down so much on
Yeah.
anger, right? Like,
Yeah.
as if it's just like this thing that you should avoid, and if you're angry, there's something wrong with you,
Right.
and shame. No, angry is a healthy emotion. Angry is a normal emotion. You're gonna feel it. Now, it's unhealthy to start like spilling that anger out on other people and hurting
Right.
them and infringing upon their space or their rights. Those are two different things, though,
Right.
right? You can feel anger. And like yeah, anger is a great thing. Feel it, allow it, but
Right.
allow it to go away too.
Yeah, and it's great if you understand that it's not your primary emotion. The actual
Yeah,
thing, there's something else attached
yeah,
to
you're
it
hurt.
where the pain, the hurt,
Yep,
and why you're hurt. Whether it made you feel more insecure or something like that,
yep,
or fearful, or whatever it was. I mean, that is what you're really pissed off about. And most of the time, you're just really pissed off at yourself for allowing yourself to be in this situation. I think we always feel like that. At the end, we always feel duped, right? No matter how the
yeah,
relationship played out, at the end, if you're the one walking away in pain, you feel like, oh damn it, I'm never going to allow this to happen again. That's why so many people say, I'm never going to get married again.
yeah,
I'm never,
yeah.
people even say that about dogs, right? Like you have a dog that's dying, like my old dog. Like I swear, if Kyle makes it to Christmas, bro, I'll be shocked, bro. Because
Oh man,
no,
that
he's not well,
sucks.
bro, and I feel it, and I
Oh,
know it,
sorry
and
to
I've
hear
already
that.
accepted it. Yeah, I've already
Yeah,
accepted it. So the point is that
they're little tragedies, man. When you
but
buy them.
yeah, if we all know it's going to happen, right? So when he dies, if I'm the kind of person, I'll never get another guy. Come on, man. Right? Like,
Yeah,
what is that? What is that? Like, you're
yeah,
trying to prevent something that's just. Look at all the joy he gave me. That's like saying that I wish
exactly.
that would never gave me. He gave me a lot of joy. He's just not allowed to be in here when I do the show because all I hear is,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
that's okay.
But
Mine's nails scrape all over the
But
floor.
right
So.
after this is over, I'm gonna go give him a little bit of love and look into his vacant eyes, and just God, man, I love you, Kyle. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's it. And keep the new puppy off of him because the new puppy's like, hey man, I'm gonna be around another 15 years. What, you leaving, Kyle? Where you going, Kyle?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because even mine, right? Like we lost Rocky a couple years back,
yeah.
but Apollo is, he's
Yeah.
getting a lot more gray than he used to have. He's slowing down a little bit. He's getting to that point where it's like the upper echelon of the expectancy of his breed and his size. And it's going to suck. But yeah, like you said, the idea of never having another one. No, I mean, I probably will take some time off because I want to be able to grieve him. And at the same time,
No, you won't. I give
well,
you a week.
no, I probably will personally, only because like I've been responsible for either kids or animals for so long. Like I wouldn't mind taking a break of having to like, because it's tedious to have to take them with you on vacation or find somebody to watch them, and just I wouldn't mind having a break. You gotta remember, my house is a little bit different, dude. My wife has got like a zoo in here, so like I'm over being responsible for animals for a little bit.
Yeah, you notice in all
But
the
eventually I
sentences.
will get one.
Yeah, and all the sentences that you're saying I, but what you
Yeah,
forget is you got women there
yeah, I know,
at your
I know.
house that are
Let me
gonna.
live in my delusion for just a
Yeah, you
minute.
go. Okay.
Let
Like
me
as
let
long as
me
you know it,
enjoy my delusion
as
just for a
long as you
minute.
know you're there, Trinity, I will
Yes,
let you feel like
I'm fully
you
aware.
need some time.
I'm
Yeah,
fully aware that I will decide to get a dog as soon as my wife decides that for
yeah,
us.
you need some time. Like I thought it was ending at 2 dogs, right?
Right.
That
Yeah.
third dog. That had nothing to do with me, man. I
Yeah.
got too many women around me that I love dearly, and man,
Yeah.
they got me, Trinity. They
Oh
got
yeah.
me.
Oh yeah. I'm fully aware. But like
Yeah.
I said, I'm gonna live in my delusion long enough.
Okay.
Let me have that for now.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah. So that conscious uncoupling, I think that so I guess let me just refer to the leaving, right? The healthy, our prognosis, if you will. Just
Right.
open Dharma. This is how we talk about it.
Right.
I think anytime you leave a relationship, one of the most liberating things to do at the end of a relationship is to let it go.
Right.
And what I mean by let it go, right? Like I remember with a breakup. I'm not going to say who or how, but there was a breakup that took place in my life.
Right.
And I remember afterward the breakup, there were like text messages that were sent
Right.
that would hype me up. Right. It would like reflect or bring up an instance or whatever it was, their perspective of it. And I would get irritated because my perspective was obviously different. So what are you talking about? Like, it would start like an
Yeah.
argument or dialogue
Right.
because I was still operating in that mode of it mattered what they thought of me. It mattered if they got this right or wrong. And I was filled unconsciously, I was filled with this irrational fear of if I don't correct that, something's going to happen. Like I've got to correct that. They're wrong. And that's where I came up with the okay practice. That's why I came up with the okay practice, and it worked for me. And that is, who cares? Right? Like if you think these things, okay, now what? Because at the end of the day, no matter what I say to you, you're going to think it anyways. But if I engage, then I'm just prolonging this toxicity between the two of us. I'm keeping the party going when I don't want to be at the party in the first place. So what I eventually ended up doing was, let's exaggerate for the purposes of this discussion. Oh, you're an asshole. Okay. I'm not even going to defend it. I'm not even going to tell you why I'm not. Okay, I'm an asshole. Now what? Like, and congratulations. That's how you feel. And I'm agreeing with you 100%. Yep, I'm an asshole. Now what? And you realize nothing. There is no, the conversation's now over because you just admitted to it. And so what I say is now I just skip straight to the point of setting that boundary of I'm not going to allow myself to I don't want to say care, right? Because we all care, but I'm not going to allow myself to engage. I'm going to allow you to have your perspective. I'm going to allow you to be where you're at on the journey, fully knowing that it has no bearing on my life right now whatsoever. I'm no longer going to own that. I'm no longer going to pick that up and run with it. I'm no longer going to try to correct you and run with it. I'm going to allow you to be where you're at, and I'm going to be where I'm at. And that's a very healthy boundary to set. And I think that in relationships, that's where people sometimes get stuck. Is after the relationship is over, meaning you have both agreed and decided this is not going to work. I'm moving on with my life, but they don't move on. They still want to win an argument. They still want to be right. They still want to prove to that other person on why they did. Stop. If you've agreed to walk away, then walk away. Set a boundary, move on with your life, allow them to be wrong. So go ahead.
No, I know, I like it and all that stuff. And, you have experience in that. I look, I'm real fortunate and blessed. I joke about it all the time, and I hope that my joke doesn't come back and bite me in the ass. But, I've never experienced rejection. I've never had a breakup. So I don't know what that would feel like. I'd never want to experience what that feels like. It doesn't look like it feels any good. I've helped a lot of people through it emotionally. I've been that support system for a lot of people through it. Right. But I don't want to experience it, and I have no plans to. When I read into this conscious uncoupling, what interested me in this is that word conscious is important. Like, you got to be conscious, you got to be aware, you got to be deliberate in your actions. But the uncoupling part is probably even the bigger word, because the uncoupling means it's over. You're no longer a couple, so it doesn't matter. A lot of the things that you want to say, it's irrelevant. That person doesn't need to hear what you have to say. They don't need to hear everything you think about them anymore, because they're no longer supposed to be that kind of meaning to you. They're no longer supposed to carry that meaningful existence in your heart. You can love somebody as a friend. You can love them as the parent of your child. You can even love them as a human being. If you're one of these special people that goes, I love everybody, even people that I hate. All right, great. But let's uncouple and be in separate scenarios and be okay with that. That means all your weaponry, put it down, because you don't need it against me. I'm not going to fire back at you. You're not going to fire at me. That's how I envision this being in reality, right? Is two people agreeing to no longer fight, right? Let's not throw daggers at each other. Neither one of us are going to win. How about this? How about we're both assholes? We're right. We got to allow ourselves to each be each other's asshole. But how about both of us are right, and how about both of us are wrong? Because that's the reality of most bad situations.
Sure.
Both of us are going to be wrong. Both of us are going to be right. And both of us are jerky to each other, which is why we don't work. And since we don't work, we need to move our separate ways. And how about this? When we communicate, just understand, God, man, we tried it, right? It was good. We had good times, right? We had great times, but it just didn't work out that way, man. So let's just, let's be here for the kids. Let's not pass messages through the kids. Let's not use them as messenger people. They don't, why we broke up is because it was a toxic relationship for the kids. They were watching that toxicity. Let's just at least agree to one thing and make this the biggest agreement that we have. is that, well, two. One, that we don't work together, and two, that they don't have to see that toxicity anymore,
Right.
and that's it. And as long as we do that, we have been successful parents. If we do that, we are successful parents. If we cannot do that, then we weren't good together. We're not good not together. You know what? We really do both suck. We both need to just
Yeah, right.
just figure that shit out, because we suck together, we suck apart. What's next? So I think that's where this all goes. Thank you very much for allowing us to talk about conscious uncoupling, Trinity. I like that on Dharma Time. You have that final say so when we talk about Dharma Time. We might both bring up things, but I like the fact that I can kind of just sit back on Dharma Time and be like, all right, Dharma guy, where is this something that you want to discuss on this show? And then we have at it. So I think we effectively explained our understanding of this topic based on the information you gave us. And now I feel like Johnny Cash and my song is sung, so I'm done.
There you go, man. I've been everywhere, man.
That's it.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. And it sounds mean almost to somebody, but it doesn't matter, right? Like that's the biggest part, I think, is if you've separating from someone, what they think and feel about you, and to a lesser extent their happiness, it doesn't matter anymore. It's not your job. That's not your role in that person's life anymore. If I've separated from somebody, I've got my own life now that I need to worry about. Your happiness, that's no longer my concern. I mean, I hope for you on a baseline as a human being that you achieve happiness. And if I'm connected to you through kids or through other acquaintances or whatever, I wouldn't want to wish you any ill, right? Like, so on that base level, happiness, I hope, is achievable. However, actively working towards making that happen is no longer my responsibility. That's not a burden that I'm walking around with anymore. So the idea that it doesn't matter, that's important, right? Like, I think that has to be the focus, not in a cold, angry, vindictive way, but just in a matter of fact way. You got to move on. You got to heal from it. You got to let that go. It no longer matters that you were wrong. That Thursday afternoon when they wanted the chicken and you were. It doesn't matter, right? It seriously, and I think I see so many people get hung up on things when it did matter. And we can argue that it didn't even matter then, right? Because most arguments are petty in nature, but it mattered then in the sense of you were still dependent on one another for some sort of reciprocal relationship.
Right.
But now it no longer matters. If they were right and you were wrong, or vice versa, it really does not affect your day moving forward. And that's the approach that you got to take. So the conscious uncoupling thing, hey man, yeah, I think that's the gold standard. I think that's what you should strive to achieve. I wouldn't beat yourself up if you're not an expert at it. I think at the end of the day, you got to live your life in the way that you can be proud of. Try to be cognizant of the fact of they're a human being and they had a perspective as well. Just because you feel hurt doesn't mean you were inherently right. They also felt hurt and they weren't inherently right or wrong either. And so, as he pointed out earlier, it just didn't work. Like, I think that's the healthiest approach to have. It just didn't work for whatever reason. It doesn't matter at the end of the day why it didn't work, because when you move on in your life, it's not like that's going to be on the application that you're going to have to fill out to get whatever you want of why did it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So it just, you got to focus on the idea. It didn't work. Let it go, move on. Let them be where they're at on their journey and you be where you're at on your journey. And I think
take your antibiotics and then go focus on conscious coupling.
Exactly.
Instead of bringing that crap to the next relationship.
Yes. And if you are going to find another relationship, which, I would encourage people to do if that's something that gives you fulfillment, but don't take it with you. Don't have that third party in a relationship. Like, don't walk into it reading into every single thing that this other person does with your own narrative. I use that word on purpose, and I'll tell you why in a minute. With your own narrative and filling in all these gaps and trying to say, well, they did. Stop. That's not good for them. That's not good for you. And it's damn sure not good for your relationship. And so, yeah, moving forward, that's part of the healing process, is letting that stuff go and not bringing all that baggage with you into the next one. So, and the reason why I said narrative, by the way, is I figured we're going to be doing a show on narrative, and why not next week? Why not? unless something comes up between now and then where we have just an amazing show that we got to do. I think narrative should be a show that we do next week. What do you think?
Yep.
I like it. So, you got anything you want to add before we cut it out? I think that was my final thoughts, by the way.
I think you covered it.
Yeah,
I think we're
kinda
done.
just went ahead and did it anyways, I guess. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, like, share, comment. It really does help us, man. We're trying to build things here, and we can't do it without you. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch live. You can also follow us on social media. He is at the Dope Doctor. I am at the Dharma Guy. Together, we are at Dope and Dharma. And that's all I got. So now that you know better, do better. Peace.